Well, hey, everybody. Good morning from California and the West Coast, and good afternoon to all points east. I should say I should include the Pacific in that too, Hawaii and Guam. Having lived in Hawaii for 5 years, don't want to forget our friends out in the middle of the ocean. Good morning to them as well. This is memory serves me, class 23. We're going to continue today our discussion of intuition. And today, how to develop our intuition. It's really the only alternative we have to logic. And so, 2 weeks ago, we talked about deductive logic and inductive logic and compared it to intrusive thoughts. And I want to remind you that brain researchers are using task-related thinking and task-unrelated thinking as a wonderful way of separating deliberate, purposeful thought, cognition, from the noise, the voices in your head, the monkey mind, the intrusive thoughts that are full of negativity and with which we're all quite familiar. And then last week we talked about gut feelings and the difference between instinct and intuition. Instinct being, oh no, run away, what to avoid, and at least in terms of fight or flight, instinct is many things. But in terms of fight or flight, it's what to avoid, run away, danger, Will Robinson. Whereas intuition is much higher. This is the heart chakra, and this is what to move toward. And that's the oh boy end of the bar magnet. And then our emotions pretty much are experienced in the body between the heart and the base of the spine. We talked about that last week. Today, let's go a little bit further and talk about how do I develop this intuition? How do I promote it? And you won't be surprised if I tell you it's a relaxation skill. The harder you try, the worse you do, which is the case in so many things. Remember that phrase, tension disables, relaxation enables. This is always true. And if we find a case where it's not, I'll apologize then. But I'd like you to, that's worthy of remembering, that in all cases, the more holding on, our attachments, our clutching and grasping, that's all physical tension. And it's also obviously a response to anxiety and stress and fears, is tight muscles. And the trade-out to be stronger and either fight or run is that we lose awareness. We get real stupid. So tension disables us mentally and emotionally. Relaxation enables. That's the answer. So isn't it wonderful? Mindy and I were just talking about this a few minutes ago, to consider that by practicing meditation, contemplation, introspection, or reflection, whatever you want to call it, we always have something to do whenever we don't know what to do, right? The physical world is a reflection of what's inside. The more you focus on the world around you, how can I say this? I don't want to say the less aware, because you can be aware of the world around you, but you're looking at a result or a reflection of your consciousness and quite obviously the consciousness of other people. You look out into the world or use your other physical senses and sensations. It's like looking at a mirror. The world reflects us. If you want to really understand yourself, you obviously have to look in the other direction. You have to look within. That's reality. This is illusion. This is a dream, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. The world is a reflection of our thoughts and our feelings, our attitudes, our beliefs, and our expectations. And we see this in the so-called law of attraction and manifestation and such, but it's not always so clear because everybody's contributing. It's like we're not in this alone. We're living in a world of other people's contributions as well. So to really understand things, the world, or more importantly, the self and your connection to all things, you have no choice but to look within, to close your eyes. And a refusal to do that is the source of all of our problems. That's where I began last week. The illusion of separation is the source of all of our problems. So let's do our opening meditation, and then we'll talk today about this wonderful ability that we have called intuition, and how we can access it on demand rather than hope that we get a good idea, that we get a little epiphany or a revelation or something happens that we suddenly grok it. It all falls together, these wonderful lid-lifting realizations. Isn't that a nice word? Realization. We can do it on demand. You can go to the source anytime you want. But we also need to account for our resistance to doing that. Why is the egoic consciousness, the ego, so terrified of what we'll discover and constantly interrupting us and telling us that we'll never meditate, we're no good at it, we're wasting our time, what a stupid thing to be doing. And you're not that voice. Just stop listening to it and consider that there is a still small voice. You've heard that phrase. The still small voice that you can become aware of when you quiet things down through meditation. So let's do that. Let's meditate, okay? So get comfortable in your chairs, sit up, sit back, shoulders back, close your eyes, and just become aware of how it feels to be in your body. Slowly scan or sweep your body from head to toe and see how you feel. And maybe even say to yourself silently, I have a body. I am not this body. I am that which illumines and animates it. I'm much more than the body, but I have a body. It's where I live in this world. And we're to take care of this body. It's been called the temple of the soul. Body is a good thing. But just like you're not the car you drive or the house you live in or the clothes you wear, though many people believe they are, you're not even your thoughts, your emotions, or your behavior, though that's obviously an important part of existing. We're the awareness of all of this. And that's what we develop when we relax, with our eyes closed. Closing your eyes is a message to the brain that you're actually safe. Though you may be stressed and overstimulated and feeling somewhat out of control, when you close your eyes, the brain says, well, maybe he or she is actually quite safe. Then we do a couple of slow, deep breaths. So let's do that now. Inhaling through your nose, pull in strength and power, and as you peak, hold for just a beat, and then exhale just as slowly through the nose or the mouth, and go beyond where you'd normally stop all the way out. Then do that a second and a third time. Big breath in, and as you exhale, feel the letting go. And do that a third time. So closing your eyes, the slow breathing, and the letting go feeling, releasing muscular tension, are three messages, right? That I may be stressed, I may be anxious, I may be overstimulated, I may be worried. But I'm not in any danger. In those three messages, my eyes are closed, my breathing is slow and deep. I can feel my muscles letting go and unwinding. And the brain goes, oh, far out, we can relax. And the higher brain functions come online. We become smarter. We become more efficient in our ability to reason, more sensitive to our emotions, our emotional awareness. Actually physically stronger in many ways and have greater endurance and are more healthy. We slow aging when we relax. Getting enough sleep is very important. But meditation is right here in the middle between deep sleep and wide awake, right in the middle, the best of both worlds. And feel the chair supporting you, the sofa or pillow you may be seated upon, the floor beneath your feet. And create and sense a safe, relaxed feeling of letting go. Your breathing is normal and natural. And you tell yourself for the next 10 minutes or so, there's nothing else I need to be doing, nowhere else I'd rather be than exploring the goodness and the truth and the beauty of what's inside me. If I tell you you are not what other people think of you, you may shift your thinking in this regard to, well, then I must be what I think of myself. And while that's true to a limited degree, you need to take a second step and consider that we're really not what we think of ourselves so much as we are what we care about. So silently and internally imagine saying to yourself, I am what I care about, my awareness of it. What's important to you? What are your values? You don't need to answer that. You don't need to name it or label it. Just feel your caring nature. Relax into the part of you that cares. I could call it love, and I often do, and certainly I'm not the only one, but gosh, that's such an overused word that I'm going to ask you to consider care as loving kindness, as generosity, as patience and tolerance and good humor. A connection to others and all things that seems to suggest that we've always known that would appear to be parts are all connected in a single universe. One thing, una, spinning around, universe. I am what I care about. I am that I care. Why do we care? Why do we care? What do we care about? Yeah, but why do we give a damn? Why is it important? Where do these values come from? Are you sure you chose them? Have you chosen your values, or were you born with just some quality of caring that urges you to slow down, to be aware, to recognize your connection to the human family, the animal kingdom, the plants and vegetation, trees, flowers, grasses, and even the mineral kingdom. Just allow yourself to feel gentle, tender, vulnerable. You're safe, right? You're safe and relaxed, so you you can extend yourself into feeling soft, vulnerable, tender, and gentle. To be kind. Excuse me. To be kind. What a great word. Kind. Kindness. What a wonderful gift to another to be kind to them. Yeah, sometimes you got to suck it up. Sometimes you got to take the hit, just not respond. You don't really have to set everybody straight. You don't have to make sure they don't, what do we say, get away with it. Who's the, or what's the part of you that says, I don't have to take this? Really? Maybe you do. Maybe you could take it, take the hit, and let it go. Like a lightning rod, you know? Just let the negative charge that we often get from others or our encounters with the world take the hit. Let it drain through you into the ground, be pulled away and absorbed by Mother Earth and the material world. And return that negativity with something positive and kind. Such a wonderful gift and so easy to do. And not only does it benefit those to whom we're kind, but it benefits you as well. It benefits all concerned. It's the greater good. Along with kindness comes understanding. For both of these qualities are part of what it means to be aware. And as we relax, and I walk you gently through this meditation, this reflection, think of kindness as a means of expanding your awareness for greater understanding, insight and understanding that arrives full-blown, or so-called intuition, that still small voice that we can hear when we get quiet. It's the voice of the soul, and this class is the wisdom of the soul. To access the wisdom of the oversoul, we have to listen to its voice. We have to open ourselves to the visceral feelings of confirmation that come with insight and understanding. It's all about letting go. Standing open, receptive, even vulnerable to the downward impress of spirit into matter. Standing open and receptive to the downward impress. As if above us all things are known and understood. A rain cloud of knowable things that precipitates down into our awareness, provided we're willing to listen, to look, to receive this downward impress. For thousands, literally, and thousands of years, wise women and men have known that the downward impress of energy or spirit into matter from this rain cloud of knowable things expands our awareness and creates an inward and upward growth. Feel this, visualize this. Repeat it silently to yourself. It is the downward and outward flow of energy, spirit, into matter that creates the inward and upward growth. It's almost as if you can feel yourself gently rising, becoming lighter. And then you drop your emotional baggage and put your burden down. The micromanaging of your life, the struggle to control the reflection in the mirror with little thought about looking inward. Just put it down. Trust life. Trust yourself to trust life. See your life today and in this coming week going smoothly. Imagine problems and heartache or upset that have been disturbing you dissolving for no particular reason. Maybe it was a coincidence or a happenstance, perhaps good fortune. Maybe you will never know how these problems resolved themselves and how this upset and heartache healed itself. But stand open to the likelihood that all things pass and things stays the same. See your problems and your heartache like clouds slowly passing. Feel that letting go. And notice that you remain without the struggle, without the fear, without the sadness. Feelings of peace and joy, feelings of kindness, that's where we were, right? Loving kindness and how it leads to understanding and deeply relaxed, safe levels of awareness. Effortlessly bring these feelings with you, bring this awareness with you. For it's not something you carry, it's who and what you are. So allow this greater awareness, this understanding to stay with you as we return to the waking state. And I'll count to 3 just to aid our transition. 3 in a moment. We'll be wide awake, feeling better than before. And as I count 1, simply form the intention to return to wide awake. 2, feel a floating up, gentle reorientation, as if waking up, but simply rising. 3, eyes open, wide awake, back in the room. Take a big breath. And as you exhale, maybe stretch a little bit. Like you're waking up in the morning. Another deep breath. Big cleansing breath. Feel the letting go. Floating downstream or rowing your boat gently. You do want to put some paddles in the water, you know. It's a suggestion with a little bit of control. But you're floating downstream and you're doing it gently because you're dreaming it all up. Which means if life is difficult, if it's nightmarish, it's because we've conjured up those demons by counseling fear. And sometimes you need to do that. You certainly need to look at the things that frighten you. But, you know, you don't want to hold on to that. It's just the entrance of the cave. Don't linger there. Move into it. Explore it. And be the light. Be the light that illumines the path. And again, I'll repeat. Any time in life that you don't know what to do, this is what you do. You close your eyes and look within. Stop trying to manage the world. I mean, yeah, you got to steer the car. I mean, you got to make the grocery store list. You got to pay your bills. Certainly need to be reasonable about this, but It doesn't have to be all that hard. Because life is not being done to you from out there. It's flowing through you and moving out into the world. Does it bounce back? Yeah, it bounces back too. It's like dropping a pebble in a small pool or maybe a bowl of water, and the ripples radiate out in all directions, one after the other. But then they hit the edge of the bowl and they come back, don't they? It's karma. So thank you for that. Thank you again for being here. I so appreciate it. I want to mention quickly before we move into instruction today that I have begun to podcast this class or a portion of it. We open with the group meditation, and then we do instruction here in the middle, and then Q&A on the end. So what I'm doing for the podcast is lopping off the Q&A and the meditation at the beginning, and podcasting usually 35 minutes of this instruction part. And I just double checked, and we're doing really well. We are the Ageless Wisdom Mystery School podcast is a top 2% podcast, which means we're getting roughly 50,000 downloads a month. We average 19,000 to 20,000 unique visitors, and they are listening to 2.3 podcasts. That's how it works out, 2.3 podcasts per month. So that's 50,000 downloads, roughly. And that puts us in the top 2% of podcasts in the world. That's pretty cool. And largely attributable to the fact that I've been doing this podcast for 13 years. And, God, a variety of iterations. I mean, we've done webinars with phone calls when I was in Hawaii, a lot of solo podcasts, and, of course, a year and a half of interviews from the KPFK radio days. And now we're going to do Wisdom of the Soul podcast. But you search for Ageless Wisdom Mystery School, and just go to Google or your favorite podcast app on your phone, Ageless Wisdom Mystery School, and subscribe to that. Now, the entire class is posted on YouTube as a video, the full 90 minutes. And I would love for you also to subscribe and like and comment there. So, how do they say? Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Then you'll get an email notice every time a new one is posted. And if you miss a class, you're unable to attend, you'll be able to either watch the full class on YouTube or listen to the middle 30 minutes as a podcast. I'm also considering, and I'd like your opinion on this, posting online at michaelbenner.com and also theagelesswisdom.com transcripts of the podcast at the very least, or maybe transcripts of the whole thing. The days of the individual having to sit down and do this manually are long gone. We've got some really smooth AI programs that'll do this for us. And so I'm investigating that. If you have a comment on that, if that sounds like a good idea, you'd like to have access to the transcripts, let me know. Send me an email, awmysteryschool@gmail.com, awmysteryschool@gmail.com, and let me know what you think about any of this. The podcast, the YouTube, the possibility of doing transcripts. Is that something that you might use or benefit from? Right, let's talk about intuition. I think we all know the aha experience. And I'm going to compare it to a similar experience, though the comparisons are somewhat limited. I think there's value in discussing tip of the tongue phenomena. Tip of the tongue phenomena, in fact, I'll bring in a third allegory here. It's like the Chinese finger lock. You guys remember when we were kids, we'd have these woven tubes, and you put your fingers in the tube, and then the harder you pull, the more tightly you're stuck in the tube. And the only way to get your fingers out of this woven tube is to relax and then gently withdraw the finger. That's the way the mind works. Again, tension disables, relaxation enables. The harder you try, the worse you do. Harder you try, the worser you do. The worser you do. That's true in sports psychology. There's something called eustress, EU stress, or good stress, that helps you psych up for a performance. And stage fright would be a good example of that. The terror that people feel if they have to get up in front of a group and speak. Public speaking is the greatest fear of all. Greater than fear of death or root canals is public speaking, according to the Wallace Book of Lists, anyway. It's the greatest fear. And, of course, there's no danger. There's just, what's the fear? I don't know. Well, that's always the point with fear. It's what you don't know. What will they think of me? Maybe they'll laugh at me. It's not likely. And there are tricks for being a good public speaker, but anytime you wish, you can learn to turn stage fright into stage fever. You can turn fear and anxiety into excitement and enthusiasm. They pretty much feel the same. Have you ever noticed that fear and excitement pretty much feel the same in the body? Girded loins and butterflies in the belly, and maybe heart palpitations, a lump in your throat, or sweaty palms. Your eyeballs actually dilate when you're excited and or afraid. So what's the difference between the two? Usually a slow, deep breath and a letting go feeling of relaxation will convert any fear into excitement, because it promotes knowing and understanding. That's the antidote to fear. Ralph Waldo Emerson, knowledge is the antidote to fear. I wish you had said understanding, because that's even more to the point, but I'll settle for knowledge and or understanding, perhaps better said, is the antidote to fear, because what's fear but ignorance and confusion and uncertainty? It's not about danger. And when it is, it's what you don't know about the danger. I will not dwell on this now because we've talked about it before, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again because it's so fundamental. So when you want to remember, you've got to relax. That tip of the tongue phenomena. What was his name? Gosh, it was, I'm getting the letter B. I know it was B something. And the harder you try, the less likely you are to remember. You all know this experience. You can see that tip of the tongue phenomena. It almost has a feeling that goes with it. And the harder you try, the more it eludes you. Now, then you come to a point where you go, well, I don't know. I give up. And the worst thing you can do is say, I forget. I forget. And the subconscious says, okay, want to forget? We can do that. We can prolong your remembering with a little tension, a little frustration. That's enough to shatter your ability to recall even more. But what if you said instead, I'll remember in a minute. I'll think of it in a minute. And you stop trying. and go about your conversation. I, you know what happens. You've all had the experience of, what is it? Rarely more than 30 seconds, usually 15, 20 seconds later, pops right into your head. Oh, and you interrupt yourself or some other who is speaking and say, I just remembered it's whatever. Just popped into my head. Why did it just pop into your head? Because you stopped trying to logic it out, to use logic and cognition to access your memory. Instead, you need to use intuition, a letting go, and allowing to come forth, and some positive affirmations. Like that'll be easy to remember. Why would you say to yourself, I hope I don't forget? I mean, notice what happens in your mind right now if I say, do not, I'm telling you, you better not think of a purple elephant. There it is. Big, fat, purple elephant. But I told you not to think of it. See, the mind doesn't know how not to think of something. It can only think of it, and then you could put an X through it and send it to the cornfield or something. But if I tell you, don't think of a green and orange zebra, you can immediately, in spite of your best efforts, see the zebra. So why would you say don't forget? Because what do you hear then? Forget. Oh gosh, I hope I don't forget. I'm warning you, you better not screw this up, screw this up, screw this up, mess this up. You're going to fail, you're going to fail. See, don't talk to yourselves that way. Gosh, I hope I don't screw this. I hope I don't forget. How am I going to remember? Because I always forget. How can I remember to remember? Well, first thing you can do, before we even get to remembering to remember, is just be positive with yourself. Oh, that'll be easy to remember. Maybe you follow it up with, why will it be easy to remember? Well, maybe you use a mnemonic, or you say, well, it's alphabetical order, or some other little memory trick where you associate something you want to remember with something else. Memories are always stored by association. And then you care about it strongly if you want to remember it. I'll do a whole class on memory at some point. But you have to feel strongly about it. You have to care about it. You remember things that you're horrified and frightened of. Those are easy to remember. And things that you absolutely love, 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 love are easy to remember. And if you review your life and what you remember of your life, you'll notice the memories that are most easily available and accessible are those that you feel strongly about, whether positive or negative. So what if you made it a point to deliberately remember? You're on vacation, put down the camera. All you'll remember is manipulating the camera. Put it in your pocket. Open your eyes, open your heart, drink it in and say, wow, what a great feeling, what a view. It's like going to the Grand Canyon, or Yosemite, or hell, your hometown sunset or sunrise. What a beautiful, that flower. It's spring. Here come the flowers. Meadows full of wildflowers. There's your dog running through the meadow. Well, that'll be easy to remember. Maybe even close your eyes and visualize it. Yeah, this will be easy to remember. You're just like programming a computer, and the whole process is enhanced when you're really, really relaxed about it. Well, intuition is very similar. The harder you try to understand something, after making the effort, and you say, well, logic is not revealing this. I think about it. I've thought about it. I keep thinking about it. I worry about it. I lay awake in bed at night, tormenting myself, looking at it from all these different angles. And logic has failed me. I hope and pray that I think of something intuitively, that something pops into my head that helps me realize some insight and understanding, some big picture, some aha, some eureka illumination. Doesn't it always come like light? Whether a dawning, wait a minute, hold on, something's coming here. We can begin to see it. It's coming to me. Or maybe a little faster than that. Maybe it's the archetype of the light bulb popping on. Ah, that light bulb over the head in the cartoon. Ah, I got it. Wow, that's a great idea. Man, I don't know why I never thought of that. Just occurred to me. Light bulb just came on. Sometimes we're thunderstruck. A lid-lifting explosion of insight that changes the world and you forevermore. Mind-blowing. Oh my God. So little or a lot, maybe the gentle, gradual dawning of awareness. The light bulb pops on or you're thunderstruck. But it's an illumination from inside. It's not logic, don't you see? This is not, well, if this is true and this is true, then in these conditions and this must be true. Logic is wonderful as far as it goes. And again, 2 classes back, we spend a whole class on deductive and inductive logic. Enough said. But if we have a lot of particulars, a lot of specifics, and we sort of sense that something must unite, there's some sort of common thread or element that runs through this. There's a pattern here someplace. Well, logic's about breaking things down. Deductive logic, anyway. And inductive logic is just a guess. It's a conjecture based on an often limited set of experiences. So it's really logic and intuition. Intuition is really the only alternative, and most of us walk around hoping for that insight. And notice when you do get it, it usually comes while you're relaxed. You're staring out the window, you're meditating, you're taking a shower, you took the dog for a walk, you're relaxed, and boom, that's when it's most likely to occur to you. The harder you work with logic, the less likely you are to access intuition. It's almost like a teeter-totter. It's an inverse relationship. The more logical and reasonable you are, that creates stress and tension. So the less intuitive you'll be. If you want to be intuitive, you've got to, the teeter-totter goes the other way. To promote intuition, you've got to be less logical. I mean, stop working at it. Stop chasing it. Stop slicing and dicing and breaking it into pieces. You need a big picture. You need the aha. You need the overarching concept that unifies or at least harmonizes all these bits and pieces that you sensed were somewhat related. There was some sort of pattern here. So whether it's a matter of managing the tip of the tongue phenomena and remembering something, or more to the point here today, developing intuition, it's a relaxation skill. You need some affirmative, some positive thinking and expectation to go along with it. But here's an example I want to give you. And remember, we're going to do Q&A in about 10 minutes, so I hope you will jot down your question or your comment in the chat box so Mindy can call on you. Just a brief summary of what it is you'd like to ask about, and Mindy can either read it for you or we'll defer to you and let you open your mic, especially if you have a follow-up to it. So be thinking about that. I really value the exchange. The interaction is important. Everybody benefits from that, so hope you'll share what's going on in your head here. So here's the allegory I'm going to give you. I call it Feed the Ducks. And it occurs to me that if you take a toddler to the city park to see the ducks, and I think every parent at some time does something like this. You go to the city park and kids pigeons will do. Kids aren't fussy. If all you've got is pigeons will do. But I think about the ducks, the city park, the little lake. Even out here in the desert, we have a lake in the city park, and we have ducks and geese too. Geese too, for that matter. So the toddler, the little boy or little girl, sees the ducks, gets all excited, wants to get close to the ducks, and so he or she runs. If you let go of their hand, off they go, chasing the ducks, and of course the ducks outrun them. But it takes a while for the little kid to accept that they're never going to catch these ducks, and so they try, and they run around here and they run around there. The ducks don't go far, but they will always outrun you. They'd outrun a champion sprinter, much less a toddler, right? So what does the parent do? The parent says to the child, look, you've got to sit down and be quiet. You've got to sit down and be still. And here, maybe we'll throw a few breadcrumbs around. And if you remain still and remain quiet, the ducks will come in. And as they come in, if you still resist the temptation to jump up and grab one, they'll come even closer. And the ducks will come so close that you can see all these details of the feathers and the coloration and the bands, the striping, the magnificent palette of colors on these ducks, and how the male ducks are particularly colorful and the female a little more muted. If you allow it, if you let them come to you. And hopefully this works for you as a model as well as it has served me. If I get a good idea and I chase it, I often lose it. I start chasing the duck. Oh, I just thought of something, and let me run after it, right? With my logic and my reasoning and my calculator and my recollections of the past and my science and my empiricism, and phew, vaporizes. It's gone. Wait a minute. What was it? What did I just say? What were we talking about? But if you take a breath and relax, close your eyes, just wait. This is the secret to intuition. You have to be relaxed, quiet, still, and patient. and let the idea come to you. I think of Christ on a couple of occasions saying, "Knock and the door shall be opened, ask and ye shall receive." And most people go, "Well, that's really nice. I guess that's about petitioning God with prayer," which is something that speaks more of Santa Claus than the divine. Hey, God, I need your help with this. But God is busy making all these micromanaging decisions. He has to decide who wins every sporting contest. He has to decide, or she has to decide, the path of every tornado and hurricane. Has to choose to blow down the church and kill all the people inside. Vengeful God, angry. This is our history. Trying to appease the gods with sacrifices. The fatted calf and at the very least, the flowers and the incense and the offerings to appease this separated, capricious father aspect, this angry parent. Well, that's not the only way to look at it. This communication can be more a letting go and opening and alignment. What if prayer and meditation were more about aligning yourself and releasing your resistance and unkinking the garden hose, so to speak, to stand open and receptive and to allow this wisdom to precipitate down from the rain cloud of knowable things. I'd like it. This is sometimes called the Akashic Records. It's like everything that's ever been known or understood and more overshadows us as a rain cloud of knowable things. That's what theosophists call it. And Eastern religions, it's similarly referred to as the Akashic Records. Again, Santa Claus has this. He has this big book. He knows if you've been naughty or nice, right? He just checks the book. And this is from the ancient wisdoms that all memories are stored, all experience is retained. And I'm not going to go off too far in that direction because that too is a related field, but a bit off the mark for today. In other words, intuition doesn't come from you, it comes through you. You see? It doesn't come from outside at you, and technically it doesn't really come from you, though that's closer to the point. It comes through you, comes through each of us all the time, in proportion to our level of relaxation or tension. It is suspended when we become tense. It's a survival thing. If you are facing some unknown danger and you sit there and ponder, you're less likely to survive than somebody who jumps up and runs before they even know what the danger is. And this fight or flight reflex, fight or flight response, it's really a reflex. Somebody surprises you, you will jump. You'll say, "You scared me." It's not really fear, it's just surprise, but triggered the same part of the brain. And those who jump and run are more likely to survive and procreate and pass that hair trigger down and look around. We are the survivors. We are the offspring of people who were easily triggered by fear. We all have hair triggers when it comes to anything frightening. But look, we survived the jungle. The Neolithic revolution. We transitioned from hunter-gatherers to communities where we work together. And hey, I like working with animals, so I'll do the horses if you do the farming and you do the dairy, and I'll be the sheriff. And we came into communities and found that that worked much better. So we're not in as much danger. And we need to reset or reprogram, or in time, evolution will help us feel more safe. But if this is the deal, transitioning from always being afraid to recognizing how safe you are and then contributing that peace and that love and that harmony and that safety to the world so that you can become safer. You see what a wonderful upward spiral this is. But we've got to reprogram. And don't just jump up and run, and don't chase the ducks. You have to you have to sit quietly and let these insights, this light. Remember, Christ said, I am the way and the light. Spiritual people often talk about light. Well, it's enlightening, or my goal is to experience enlightenment. Illumined manuscripts had beautiful drawings in them, were illumined manuscripts. The light. That's how intuition comes. And it's such a wonderful feeling to know that you can access it on demand, that you can promote intuition with relaxation in a closed eye process, provided you get real clear on the difference between deliberate cogitation, thinking deductively, or even reasoning inductively, which is guessing and conjecture based on what little you do actually know, to intuition, where you just surrender and open. And if you want to understand spiritual things, the invisible universe of energy, you have to access your intuition. And it is more emotional than mental. It's hard to separate because, as I said 20 classes ago at the very beginning, thoughts and feelings are entangled like flavor and aroma. There is no separating flavor and aroma when eating a meal, for example. If you're just smelling a flower without any intention of eating it, I suppose you could say, well, it's not likely that flower would make my mouth water, but I can smell the fragrance of the flower. But the experience of eating, flavor, aroma is a big part of that. Anybody who really appreciates fine food, fine wines, good whiskeys, there's a whole set of experiences that come with the unfolding of the flavor, layer after layer after layer of the flavor. And so aroma is a big part of that. Aroma and flavor are like two sides of the same coin, two very distinct senses, but... And so think of intuition and logic in the same way. And also thought and feeling. They're just entangled and very much related. So that's it for today. Next week we'll practice this a little bit. How do we use intuition to discern the meaning of our emotional feelings? Right? It goes beyond that. Intuition goes beyond that. That's the whole point of meditation, the insight and the understanding that arrives when you're deeply relaxed and suspend logic, intuition. So, Mindy, do we have questions or comments that we can go to here?
Thanks, Michael. We do have one question from Bob, but I thought I would sneak in a quick one first. Your comment about spirit into matter and then back up again, I think. You just give me a little more on that, and then we'll go to Bob.
You know, the pulley is one of the 5 basic machines. And if you imagine pulling water out of a well, you could dip the bucket in the well and lift it up like this. But it would be much easier if the rope went over a pulley. And when you pull down on the rope, the bucket comes up. Right? Pull down on the rope over the pulley, the bucket comes up. That's what we're talking about here. The mystics have always said it is the downward and outward flow of spirit into matter, or energy into matter, mass, that creates an inward and upward growth. So how do we grow spiritually? How do we expand our awareness? How do we move closer to our source? How do we have greater access to this rain cloud of knowable things? You do it by standing open and receptive to the downward impress. So spirit precipitates down into matter, and if we're open to that, it creates growth, just like the rain makes the grass and the flowers grow. All right? Or the sun, for that matter, does the same thing. A flower will open, look for the sun, and then track it across the sky. Then some of them, more obviously than others, fold up in the evening to retain heat. And then the next morning will track the sun. So it is the rain and the sun that comes down and grows us. And so it is with spirituality. It's just an understanding that as we stand, I don't know a better phrase than open and receptive to the downward impress. That's what intuition is. It's this raining down of these impressions from the rain cloud of knowable things. Anything you could possibly know is available to you. Let's go a step further. I would purport that you cannot have a problem. You cannot be aware of or comprehend a problem that does not have the answer enfolded within it. Now, I can't prove that, but that's been my experience. And I would say just test it out. What if that were true? What if every problem is not only solvable, that every heartache and sadness is not only resolvable, redeemable, but it's guaranteed? That it's the carrot in front of the horse that the universe dangles in front of us to get us to move, to get up and be about the business of knowing yourself and growing yourself and expressing that out into the world in service to other people. It's not too complicated. You want mission, you want meaning, you want purpose. How about to know myself, to grow myself, and express that in service to others, recognizing that we're all one. And if I help myself, others benefit. If I help others, I benefit. That I should concern myself as much with the happiness of others and the peace of mind and the contentment and fulfillment of others as of myself. This is a great divide in the world today. The polarization that we talk about and we overlay politics, it's not politics. The polarization is between self-interest and the greater good. And the vast majority of us are in the middle on this. And we have to find appropriate balance of self-interest and the greater good. It gets a little dicey because, like the oxygen mask on the airplane, the most charitable and philanthropic people have to put themselves first. And then the selfish people obviously put themselves first and then behave in selfish ways. But A charitable person, someone who wants the best for others and desires to be of service to others, still has to care for themselves. It's not an or, it's an and. Like so many things. If we spend our whole lives replacing or with and, we'd be a lot better off. So does that help? The downward and outward creates the inward and upward growth.
It does, and I guess the more we work on that, the more we're able to give back. I guess it does make sense, and I'm going to let Bob go ahead with his comment.
Hi, everyone. By the way, if you're assigning roles, I'll take sheriff.
I'm sorry, say again?
I said if you're assigning roles, I'll be the sheriff.
Oh, okay.
But my comment was, and this requires a brief setup. I was driving down the street in my neighborhood, and I saw pulled over to the side a locksmith's van. And for no reason that I can tell you, I just pulled over and went up to his window, and he rolled it down, and I said, hi, and I introduced myself. I live up the street. Could I get your card? And he gave it to me, and we had a few brief words, and then we both went on our way. I drove away. I didn't even think about it for another second. And then the very next day, the tenant in one of my guest houses, who's been having a problem with his girlfriend, emailed me, texted me and said, I think we need to change the lock. And that's really the end of the story. But I found that pretty astounding in a way. And I know it's also very simplistic. I can probably figure out what I think about that, but I just was interested in hearing what you thought.
Sometimes intuition is called promptings. For whatever reason, the Mormons are big on this idea of trusting your promptings. I think that's another way to talk about it. And I think it has to do with time running in both directions. And I'm not a quantum physicist, so I can't be too eloquent or detailed on this. But time, too, is an illusion. There's no past, there's no future. There's just now. Quantum physics seems to suggest that all possibilities exist simultaneously, and what we call physical reality conforms to our beliefs and our expectations and our karma, our consciousness, really. So you could probably, it would be simplest just to say that was a precognitive experience. Precognitive, knowing in advance. And you weren't aware of the fact that, I mean, as you tell the story, you don't even know why you did that, right?
Exactly. It was just an impulse.
Yeah, impulse is a good word for it. But, as you become more conscious of the process, it could go from impulse, which is just a reaction or a reflex, to a real awareness. Imagine in the future experiencing a prompting or an intuitive hit and exploring it in the moment. Like, take a breath and relax, and as you're pulling the car over behind the locksmith van, asking yourself, why am I doing this? That, and you may not get answers, but it's just a matter of exploring the mind. Remember, this is one of the three goals of this whole class, is to study and develop the mind, to embody virtue and pursue wisdom. Those are really the three goals of this class. So to study and develop the mind means to wonder about that stuff. And it's not too late for you to do that, especially given the class today, to just reflect even more on what good fortune and what else am I overlooking? What else is available to me that would make life more harmonious, more elegant, less of a struggle. you know, I think that's a great story. What do you make of it? What were you thinking about it? How did you reconcile it?
Uh, uh, Various, several different explanations. One of which would be maybe actually when I pulled over, I had a brief exchange in my head about like, God, do I need this? What do I, what am I doing this for? And then it happened in a millisecond. And I think I said, well, you might need to change those locks someday because I've been there 26 years and I've never even locked my back door. I don't even know if it works. But other than that, um, uh, perhaps I had an awareness that he was having some conflict with his girlfriend. So the tenant, I mean, not the locksmith. And so just that's all, that's the only other practical uh, answer that I can come up with.
Well, if nothing else, Bob, I'd suggest that you give yourself a little pat on the back and celebrate that you're becoming more aware and uh, moving beyond the limits of time and space and trusting those feelings. Like I have a feeling when I did uh, the police training for the Orange County Sheriff's Academy. I did this. I wrote the training. I did it for 3 years until the guy that hired me retired, and they blew me out of there because what I was doing was pretty controversial. They didn't want hippies teaching sheriffs self-awareness or anything else. But we talked about intuition, and I talked to these law enforcement guys and staff too. We had crime lab people in there and jailers as well as the street patrol guys, detectives, everybody. We did everybody. And we talk about intuition, and when you get that funny feeling that something's wrong here, I said, trust it. Don't dismiss that stuff and promote it by taking a breath and letting go. And if that ominous feeling remains, somebody asked me once, years and years and years ago, how do I know if my fear is real or imagined? I don't think I've been asked that since. That must have been 40 years ago when I first came to California. I remember the day. And she said, how do I know if my fear is real or imagined? And I said, take a breath and relax. And if it remains after you let go, then it has validity. There's something to be concerned about. And you want to continue to relax, to be more aware, to deal with the reality of it. If, on the other hand, it goes away when you relax, then it's, imagined. It's just one of these, what are you afraid of? I don't know. Well, that's the point. That's what fear is. And I think that's worthy of reflection, too. I'll say it again, seems to be my theme today. Anytime you don't know what to do, you have something to do. Breathe, relax, close your eyes, let go, and stand open and receptive. Because the whole universe is laid out in front of you. Again, what if you knew that every problem, every heartache, all sadness is just a symptom of something that wants attention. It needs to be understood. It's your next lesson. It's waiting for you. The game is rigged. You can't have a problem that doesn't have a solution enfolded within it. You can't have a sadness or a heartache that doesn't have a wonderful, beautiful insight enfolded within it. And I don't know this to be true. I feel it to be true. And I just offer it to you. Find out if that's not the case. And contrary-wise, like chasing the ducks, the harder you try, the more you gnash your teeth and wring your hands and, cogitate and try to figure it out with logic, breaking it. Oh, and especially projecting to other people. Why would they do that? Why do that? We obsess on the stimulus and ignore the response. We, we're terrified to look inside, so we obsess on other people. Well, I feel angry, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm jealous, I'm envious, I'm contemptible, I'm apathetic, whatever. Let me look out into the world and focus on the stimulus as if my internal emotional response tells me about the stimulus. No, it's a response, not the stimulus. There's very little you can learn about whatever or whoever, the circumstance, the event, the individual, the group. Emotion doesn't tell you about the stimulus. It tells you about you. And that arrives non-logically, not illogically, but intuition is non-logical. Relaxation, letting go. Great story. Sort of psychic, huh?
Yeah, interesting. I thought about it for several days after. And then, if you want to know the end of it, he called the following day. I made a call to the locksmith and started to set up the procedure. And then about 2-3 hours later, the tenant called me up and said, "Never mind, they're back. They're back in love."
Yeah, I sort of figured you were going to say that. That's great.
But now I got the card for whatever happens. I'm prepared.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's always good to know a locksmith. Anybody else? Mindy, do you have any other comments or questions for us?
Not that I see. I was wondering when you were talking about relating it to my own personal fears and anxieties about health and pain and illness and just things like that affect me, like polluted air because I have lung disease. And this may not sound related, but the turmoil feels the same. And I mean, the first noble truth is life is suffering. So I know you don't mean that if we just sit calmly, it all goes away and becomes okay. I mean, we're living on the earth, but that was my question. I know we only have a couple minutes.
So it's a balance, isn't it? It's always a balance. That would be an extreme to say that we're so powerful, we're so spiritual, we're so magical that we can just dismiss these travails, these trials, these difficulties, and these challenges. They all serve a purpose. The idea is not to dismiss them, but to explore them as part of a process that, in the end, once we've processed our confusion, then we let it go. It's like grinding grain. If you just ate the grain without grinding it or boiling it, probably wouldn't be very digestible. So we grind it and we boil it, we process it, and then it becomes bioavailable. Yeah, that's why we have logic and that's why we have intuition. So it probably would be a bit of an overstatement to suggest that all you have to do is relax and intuition gives you the answers to all your problems. It's a process of understanding. Like a blossoming flower. It's a gradual unfoldment of awareness. And some things will pop quickly, and other things may concern you for years and years. and years. But nevertheless, that's the process. If you want to understand anything, you got to relax. And the harder we work at it, in terms of chasing the ducks and slicing and dicing and trying to use logic, that's what worry is. Just rocking and rocking. Remember, we talked about the rocking chair allegory. Burning a lot of calories, but you're not getting anywhere. You stand up, you're right where you were. Well, I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I laid awake at night, and it worries me so much I can't sleep, and I can't eat, and I'm just spinning my wheels. I'm not getting anywhere. Exactly. So, if the whole enchilada doesn't burst into your awareness when you employ intuition, as you develop intuition, the bits and pieces come more quickly and become more apparent. But yeah, of course, there still is a process of unfolding, a process of understanding. But I would say that process accelerates. The more you do it, the longer you do it, the more comfortable you become with standing open and receptive. Um, the more elegant, the more beautiful, the more accelerated the whole process, to the point that not sure how to say this. I think we all know the feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop, and these vague or subtle, non-specific anxieties that tug at us sometimes. And it almost feels like, gosh, something really bad is happening in my life or about to happen, but I can't remember what it was. And we try to remember, why am I afraid? What am I afraid of? I've forgotten. I know there's something I should be afraid of, something I should fear. I just can't quite put my finger on it. But we're haunted by this vague shadow of fear and ignorance. In time, developing intuition, using meditation, standing open to this rain cloud of knowable things, trusting life, trusting the universe. What if the answer were enfolded in the problem? I think that that whole process causes those vague feelings of fear to be replaced by these subtle feelings of joy. It's like the same phenomena, but it's just the opposite. These vague and subtle sense of something wonderful is happening. You just can't quite put your finger on it. Like, why am I so joyful? Why am I so happy? I can't find a reason for why I feel so good. And it's taken a long time for me to come in touch with this. In fact, I haven't talked about it very much. That's why I'm sort of struggling for words. But wow, what if I'm right about that? Maybe I'm deluding myself. But if I'm tricking myself into being happy, that's some pretty wonderful alchemy, right? Happy for no reason. That's what joy is. And the great mystics of all traditions, all cultures, all times have said as much. That joy is your natural state. Joy is how life is supposed to feel if you're doing it well. Joy is happiness for no reason. Where in the world did we get this crazy idea that we need reasons to be happy? Spend more time with kids and animals. It's easier to see in the children, I guess. Happy for no reason. They're just not encumbered by the weight of the world. And sure, it's naivete. And we know the problems that they're not aware of, but we don't have to carry them around, that emotional baggage of woe is me. I guess that serenity prayer keeps coming to mind for me. There's so much wisdom in that about accepting the limits of her power. That's a difficult thing to do, to be ever more powerful, and yet to recognize that there are always limits on what we can do. Set a goal, but hold it gently, because you may not only get what you want, you may get what you need packaged along with it, so that it takes a somewhat different form when it does manifest. Okay, that's it for today, I guess. Thank you, folks. Melinda, thank you in particular for co-hosting and helping us out. I really appreciate it. I'd like each of you to unmute and say farewell, so long, and namaste to your friends. Aloha, salam, namaste. Thank you. See you next week. Appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, Melinda.
Bye.
Thank you.